The Sinkhole by Philip Larwood, illustrated by Jeff Carlisle, with cartography by Rob Lazzaretti. This is an adventure from Dungeon Magazine, number 103. It came out in the early 2000s and is set for four fourth level characters and is set potentially anywhere, although it takes place in a village called Burek, which you could effectively place anywhere. The adventure takes place or begins at an inn called the Sleepy Sphinx, which collapses into a series of tunnels below while the player characters are sleeping. Now, this adventure takes about 4 to 6 hours to run. I ran it as part of a Ravenloft campaign on the Isle of Gastria, and you can really fit it into any campaign that fits into sort of Ravenloft or anything that ties into the Shadowfell or the Plane of Shadows fairly easily. Now, players arrive at the inn, and I would suggest throwing something in where, say, the general store has been burned down. The reason why is you want to prevent the townsfolk from having a bunch of rope available to pull the player characters out of a sinkhole. I would also suggest not running this adventure with any characters that have brooms of flying or winged boots or like an Aarakocra or any characters with the ability to walk on walls, such as having slippers of spider climbing. The characters could literally just walk or fly out of the adventure and avoid basically half the adventure as a result. Now, the adventure it begins in Burek, which there is no map for, but there is a map for the inn, and there are a number of interesting NPCs at the inn. Now, as you look down here, I'll show you the inn map, the Sleepy Sphinx. I'll note it's turned the wrong direction. I have redrawn the maps, of course, so that the inn is facing the correct direction. And you can go back up here and you'll see some detail on some of the NPCs, including Voklan, a plain-faced man in the dull green robes of a pilgrim of St. Cuthbert, although you could change the god for a different campaign setting, and some other NPCs, including the innkeeper Brenda and other people. The reason why these are important is because you want to let the player characters get to know some of the people staying here before the event takes place, as the player characters won't know that the inn is about to collapse. And if they know some of the people staying there or have had interactions with those people, it'll create more impact when the inn collapses and say some of these people are killed in the attack or in the collapse. Now, as the adventure continues, again, its main part of the adventure is when the disaster strikes, takes place. That's when the inn collapses, which there's some description of. Now, player characters do take some damage as a result of it, the inn collapsing. If they're a little above fourth level, you might want to increase the damage a little bit. But it also describes, before that it collapses, the different rooms inside the inn. But eventually you get to the collapse. Here's the main chamber, the central cave, I should say, where the ruins of the inn is. It's mostly the second story that survives, with the first story being crushed. I would recommend that all the players be staying at the inn when this takes place. So if you have a player character that is prone to always wanting to camp in a tree outside the inn for some reason, it may cause a problem running this adventure. Now, when the inn collapses, there are 3 tunnels the players can go in, of which they will encounter different things as they try to find a way out. Likely there would be a hole in the ceiling. That's why you want to avoid characters that can fly for this adventure, or characters that can easily teleport up there. If you're running it in 2014, 5th edition, you might want to tell the players that it's further than 30 feet. But they're further than 30 feet below ground. That way they can't just teleport up using some variety of Misty Step, which is pretty common in this edition. Now, as they're exploring more of the areas down here, it is highly affected by the Shadowfell, what was known as the Plane of Shadow. I would emphasize the DM would push the Shadowfell a little stronger than the adventure even presents it. Like maybe having player characters get a very bad feeling about something, or something strange about their shadows the prior night, or maybe even having some really unusual dark dreams. Many of these creatures are shadow creatures. It's a template that they provide for third edition, which can be transferred to fifth edition fairly easily. They fight some dark mantles, as you can see here, with an image of dark mantles. Here's the map leading off from the main chamber underground, all going back to C1, which is that main chamber. The map I provide connects them all together. You can see that there's actual shadow dire rats in the adventure, which are for lower level characters, a shadow mischief, shadow goblins. Here's an image of a barghest, which is for some reason in the snow. There's some shadowed barghests and more shadow goblins. There's a shadow gelatinous cube. There are some traps in this adventure as well as an acid pool and a poison gas trap. You have a really nice image here of people falling into a cave as a result of the collapse. And here we go, more shadow dire rats. You also get a minor Zorn, which in 5th edition, you could probably just let them fight a regular Zorn. This makes a decent boss fight, as there isn't really a solid boss fight for the adventure. And then they escape when they hit C14. Now, as you conclude the adventure, you get some stats for creating shadow creatures if you're playing 3rd edition. If you're playing 5th edition, you can just give them Shadow Blend as a bonus action so they can blend into the shadows. You can give them Dark Vision if they don't already have it, and give them Cold Resistance. If you really want to, you can give them another hit die like it suggests here, but I don't feel it's really necessary. Now, with this adventure, the great part about this adventure is it is a great way to get characters that don't know each other into an adventure together, although this begins at 4th level. Now, in addition, there's a good variety of creatures and traps in this adventure, and the players have a lot of good directions to go. When they initial collapse, there's 3 different directions, so they have a lot of agency. The only bad about it is there isn't really a town map of Berwick, and the art is a little so-so. The only third thing I would say is it'd be nice if there was some original creatures for this adventure, not just shadowed versions of other creatures. But overall, it's a pretty decent adventure. Now, I would rate this adventure a 4 out of 5 stars. Now, in addition, this is my redrawn map of the Sleepy Sphinx. You can see the upstairs and downstairs. And lastly, this is my redrawn map of the chambers beneath the Sleepy Sphinx when it collapses in the sinkhole. You can see I've connected all the maps together so it's easier to use. Here's the central area, and then players can go in the left tunnel, southeast tunnel, the northeast tunnel. One issue is these tunnels are very narrow, so probably very low ceilings, so characters like Goliaths and bugbears and things like that might be squeezing a little bit in this adventure. I also included an exit tunnel or an exit space so the players, when they leave, look like they go back into an actual environment other than the cave.